Hi, my name is Kent, and I have been in the health and fitness industry going on 50 years, believe it or not. I've been a personal trainer in Aspen, Colorado, San Diego, California, and now in Park City, Utah. I've owned and operated my own businesses. I've been the spa director at Canyon Ranch in Tucson, the spa director at Calavi in California, and the fitness director at the Aspen Club in Aspen, Colorado. But by far the most important thing I've learned from this 50-year career is the importance of what we eat. And that's what this video is all about. And primarily to break down the propaganda saying that we need all this protein for us to be healthy. And it's actually just the opposite. Protein in excess is killing us. Fat in excess is killing us. I hope you enjoy. Over 30 years ago in my studio in San Diego, I had clients that were starting to come down with heart disease, diabetes, being overweight, cancer, and all the weight training in the world wasn't helping these people. So I had to get out and learn what was the cause. And at the time, Atkins diet was the big hot diet. And then it's evolved to the keto diet. Then it evolved to the carnivore diet, which is the worst of the worst. And I started learning the truth. And the truth shall, as they say, set you free. Were we these great hunters back in the day, and that we are designed to eat meat because we're these great hunters? Well, what does a true paleontologist tell us?
I'm a biological anthropologist, so I'm interested in how humans and non-human primates discern and acquire food resources, and how the act of acquiring those food resources may have exerted a selective pressure on their anatomy in particular. Behaviorally, people are plastic and some people eat meat, but anatomically I would say we're not adapted to meat at all. Our teeth are too big, our enamel's too thick, the cusp on our teeth are too short. You could say that we've evolved a face and a mouth that's for eating something else that's not meat, and most people believe that's plant foods. So because there's not a very strong match between meat consumption and gradual increases in brain size, scientists have looked to other options. And given that plant foods are such an important part of modern humans that hunt and gather foods, the money is on plant foods and a shift in the kinds of plant foods as being the major driving factor in increasing brain size. A mix of plant foods with a large amount of starch coming from tubers and seeds. That's the fundamental component of the human diet.
To me, it's all about how we're designed, how we compare to a true carnivore.
Although we behave like omnivores, our digestive system actually resembles that of the chimpanzees and other great apes who eat mostly plants. The percentage of animal foods that chimpanzees do eat is very low, if any, about 2 to 3%, and mainly termites and other insects. Regarding the gastrointestinal system, humans, like herbivores, have a relatively smaller opening of the oral cavity compared to the head size. Carnivores have a wide mouth in relation to the head size, and their jaw joint is a hinged joint, very strong and stable, lying in the same plane of the teeth. The lower jaw of a carnivore doesn't move forward, and there's very limited side-to-side motion. Like herbivores, our jaw joint is positioned above the level of the teeth, and because it has an expanded angle, the lower jaw has more sideways motion and more lateral and complex motion for chewing plant foods. Our jaw joints are less stable and strong than those of carnivores, therefore, and could be easily dislocated if we actually tried to prey on an animal. On the other hand, if a carnivore had our more unstable jaws and dislocated their jaw, they would probably starve and die or be preyed upon. So it would be very disadvantageous to a carnivore to have jaws like ours. Herbivores chew food to disrupt plant cell walls for better digestion and to mix it with saliva, because unlike carnivores, who mostly swallow the food without chewing and mixing it with saliva, herbivores and humans have saliva that contains digestive enzymes. So our digestion starts in the chewing process. The saliva of carnivorous animals does not contain any enzymes for digestion. Teeth are strikingly different as well. Our canines are flattened, blunt, and small, shaped like a spade and non-serrated, unlike carnivores who have them elongated and dagger-like, which are often serrated for killing and tearing their prey. Our molars and premolars are squared and flattened for grinding and crushing, unlike carnivores who have them sharp, jagged, and shaped like a blade. If we humans try to kill a giraffe, for example, with our teeth, we'd sooner get kicked by the animal. Or if we successfully snuck up and actually tried to really bite into the live animal, it could easily result in some of our teeth falling out or our jaw dislocating. We would for sure end up with a very annoyed giraffe, but not a dead one to prey upon. And onto the stomach. Our stomach volume is, like herbivores, about 25% of our gastrointestinal tract. Unlike carnivores, who have a very large stomach volume with twice as much capacity, about 60 to 70% of their total GI tract volume, which allows them to kill maybe once a week, gorge on large amounts of meat, and digest later. The pH of our stomach is about 4 to 5 with food, unlike carnivores who secrete a lot more hydrochloric acid and have a stomach pH that is a lot more acidic. Their pH is usually 1 or less with food. The more acidic stomach of a carnivore is advantageous to kill bacteria found in decaying flesh. As Dr. Roberts mentioned, humans like herbivores have a very long small intestine, about 10 times the length of our body, unlike the intestines in carnivorous animals, which are short, only about 3 to 5 times their body length. The long intestines in humans and herbivores is necessary for the fibers in plants, which require longer and more elaborate guts, sometimes even sacculated like the human gut. And there are some striking physiologic differences as well. Just like other herbivores, humans require vitamin C from plants. If we don't eat vitamin C, we get a disease called scurvy, where we are unable to make collagen, which is the building substance of mostly everything in our body. So lack of vitamin C can result in problems in our bones, bleeding gums, problems with healing, etc. And vitamin C is found exclusively in plants. Mammals that are primarily carnivorous do not need to eat vitamin C from their diets. They make their own vitamin C. Also, vitamin A is telling. There are two types of vitamin A. Preformed vitamin A, like retinol, found in animal products like meat, liver, dairy products, eggs, and fish, and provitamin A, carotenoids, found in plant foods. The form of vitamin A that comes from animals can be toxic to humans in large quantities. The livers of animals that are primarily carnivorous have the capacity to detoxify vitamin A. However, our livers are unable to do this. In this paper published in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition, scientists expressed concern that excess of the vitamin A form that comes from animals is not always identified and can cause serious problems. They say excessive vitamin A intake may be a growing but underappreciated problem. And apparently this problem is nothing new. The scientists reported that fossilized skeletal remains of early humans suggest that bone abnormalities may have been caused by hypervitaminosis A, which means excessive vitamin A. From these and other reports, vitamin A toxicity is known to be an ancient phenomenon. So it looks like we have been behavioral omnivores for quite some time now, notwithstanding our biology. The last thing that I want to point out is actually a very sad thing. A characteristic that is unique to herbivores and not in carnivores, and it's a problem in humans, is something that Dr. Roberts pointed out as well. Atherosclerosis affects only herbivores. Dogs, cats, tigers, and lions can be saturated with fat and cholesterol, and atherosclerotic plaques do not develop. That's right, carnivores and omnivores, animals who are designed to eat other animals, can eat all the animals and animal products they want, and they never develop atherosclerosis, which are plaques of cholesterol coating our vessels that can occlude the blood flow that goes through our heart and brain and cause heart attacks and strokes. Cholesterol in our diet is only present in animal products, and we don't need to consume any of it because our body synthesizes already all of the cholesterol that we need for all of our biologic needs. Animals that are not designed to eat meat, like herbivores, including humans, do develop atherosclerosis. We do develop this problematic coating of cholesterol in our arteries, and we do it big time. Atherosclerosis is ubiquitous on a Western diet with animal products since very early in our lives. We really do end up paying a price for behaving like omnivores when we are biologically designed as herbivores. Thank you very much.
We are most definitely designed to eat plants and only plants. And Dr. McDougall explains how little protein will keep us healthy.
Protein. Every place I go, it's protein. You know, most of the gurus out there are recommending more protein, stay away from carbs. Yeah. Well, if you don't eat carbs, what are you going to eat? You're going to eat fat and protein. And some of the people that are in these low carb movements, they realize fat's not so good for you. So they hit the protein really heavily. You walk into a grocery store, a natural food store, a pharmacy. And what do you see advertised on the labels of products from everything? I'm surprised they don't have laundry detergent advertised as high or low protein. Everything's got a and they sell more protein, the better. And so what are you to think? But protein's the most important nutrient for the human being. When I was raised as a child, my parents believed that. They believed that as long as I got enough calcium and got enough protein, I'd be just fine. And so guess what they fed me? Yeah. Guess why I had terrible stomach problems? That's why I lost my tonsils. Guess why I had a stroke when I was 18? Guess why I weighed 90 pounds more than I weigh now? Because my parents believed in calcium and protein. All right, let's start at the beginning. How many cases of protein deficiency have you found? Your sister have it? Your mom? How about your best friend at the bowling alley? They got protein deficiency. They go to the doctor to get some protein supplements to solve their high blood pressure, diabetes, etc. And did you see them cured by taking all this extra protein? Did you? You've never, ever seen dietary protein deficiency. It doesn't exist. The protein requirements for a human being are so low that even in the 1800s, scientists knew that you couldn't design a diet that was too low in protein. But all we do is we fixate on protein. Well, there's a lot of money in protein. Not just in selling high protein foods, which you've identified as expensive foods like the dairy and eggs and meat, fish and chicken. These are the high income makers, the real profitable foods. Look at the rundown that happens. Look at the downhill benefits financially that occur. Well, you're feeding people a high protein diet, so you're making the pharmacies rich and the drug companies rich, and you're making the doctors rich, and all their ancillary personnel, they're getting rich, and the hospitals, they're getting rich. You know, this is a tremendous business generator to lie to the public when they've never seen a case of protein deficiency, yet they're all trying to stamp out protein deficiency by buying all these high protein products. And this is detrimental. You know, when you take in enough protein to supply your needs, you got to deal with the excess. You need a little protein. Yeah, a little protein got to kind of replace a few hairs and a few skin cells and a few gut cells. And you know, as long as you're not growing, you need a little extra protein when you grow, but not much. It's a tiny bit, just a tiny bit to grow a baby or to grow as a child, just a little bit extra. Always the food meets it. You don't have to worry about it. But after you've supplied these basic needs for protein, which amounts to about a diet of about 3%. We say that again, 3, like 1, 2, 3, 3% of the calories need to be from protein. That's it. All right. But we are focused on high protein foods, diets, products, etc. So we're taking a lot of extra protein. What happens to that extra protein? It has to be gotten rid of because it's not stored. If it was stored, it would be stored in your muscles and you'd have these huge muscles and you'd look like a bodybuilder. Not the case. So it is processed through the liver and through the kidneys and it comes out in the urine. That's where your protein ends up, in the urine. And some of it in the gut, but most of it in the urine. That's where it goes. In the process, you overwork the liver and the kidneys. You create a condition which is an acid condition in the body. We call it acidosis. To neutralize this acidosis, you have to dissolve the bones. And there's the first step in giving you weak bones or osteoporosis. And then the bones which are being destroyed by the acid from the protein, Well, you know, protein has a bunch of acid in it, don't you? You know, protein made of amino acids. Oh, come on, you've heard about that. So you're eating all this acid, and what happens is you end up not only destroying the bones, but you end up making kidney stones, calcium-based kidney stones. Yeah, you do. And plus, think about the foods that you're being encouraged to eat that are high protein. They're the very foods that you've heard are the source of most of our environmental pollution. That's right. The animal products, because they're high on the food chain, are just loaded with DDT, pesticides, all kinds of poisons from the environment. So you're focusing on those kinds of foods. You're focused on the foods that cause autoimmune diseases. Autoimmune diseases like rheumatoid arthritis and multiple sclerosis and so on are caused by a confusion that occurs between the animals we eat and the animals we are. A lot gets confused, and it starts attacking us when it should be attacking the foreign food proteins only, but it's not. So you get all these autoimmune diseases. The kind of foods that they recommend are high in fat, high in cholesterol. Well, you know what that leads to, right? Strokes and heart attacks. You know that. And it's low in dietary fiber, and you know the problem there, constipation. So, you know, it goes beyond just the protein, which we isolated out in this discussion. It's the fact that the vehicles that carry the protein around are themselves deleterious. Infections, they carry infections. We catch salmonella and E. coli, staphylococci from other animals because we're an animal. The microbes can cross between animals. We don't catch plant diseases. You don't catch tobacco mosaic virus or Dutch elm disease or aphids. You don't catch those things. Those are plant diseases. So, you know, you're taking on a big bargain when you believe in the protein myth. And besides that, just as an end note, I'll tell you what my challenge is for you. If you develop protein deficiency, by any means except starvation or experimental diet, if you develop protein deficiency on any natural diet, I want you to tell me first, because I want to be the one that reports it to the news, to the scientific journals. Dr. McDougall discovers the first case ever of dietary protein deficiency. You know, who knows? I'll go down as famous as Louis Pasteur or Semmelweis or somebody else, DeBakey, discovered a case of protein deficiency.
We are most definitely designed to eat plants and only plants, and not that much protein. Dr. Graham, with the 80-10-10 diet, explains how well the body heals itself.
Sick people get well at a fasting retreat when all we do is get out of the way and let the body heal itself by no longer putting in the negative things, the self-destructive things that they were habitually using on a daily basis. And we stop those things and they would heal. Body heals itself, just like we always knew it did. When you get a cut, it heals itself. You get a bruise, it heals itself. You break a bone, it heals itself. And all of a sudden we've lost track of some of that. So I'm watching that happen, and I'm looking at how it happens in the most critical care situations, like the intensive care unit of a hospital. You look in the intensive care unit of a hospital, and there's their temperature, blood pressure, respiration rate, how much fluid goes in, how much fluid goes out, how everything's being monitored all the time. And they're trying to keep you in very, very tight parameters, a condition that you would call homeostasis, where things hardly change at all, and just drip the nutrition into people. And even if they're in a coma, they're being given the exact same stuff. They're being given a clear fluid that's got sugar and salt in it. Basically, it's got sugar and salt.
Yeah.
And they get well enough to leave the intensive care unit and go back to the hospital, hopefully to get even better than that and go home someday. But somehow, nobody in the intensive care unit goes up to the doctors and says, "Where do you get your protein?"
Humans, all humans, are designed to eat primarily whole, unprocessed carbohydrates, and then a little protein and a little fat. Again, Dr. Graham explains.
But a lot of studies gone into fat, and what doctors have found out is you got to have some fat. And if you go below 3%, you could get into trouble. You got to eat some fat. Fortunately, if all you eat is fruits and vegetables, your protein intake is going to be around 7%. And if all you eat is fruits and vegetables, your fat intake is going to be 7 to 9%. So if all you eat is fruits and vegetables, incorporated in those fruits and vegetables is enough protein and enough fat for us to do fine, to fall into the parameters that are recommended between 3 and 10. Because if you go over 10% fat, predictable health decline, over 10% protein, predictable health decline, below 3. And if you're somewhere between 3 and 10 on fat and 3 and 10 on protein, your carbohydrate intake, since there's only 3 sources of calories, your carbohydrate intake has to, by definition, be above 80. Hence, 80, 10, 10. As a guideline, as a pretty rough shot for not, I never eat a bite of an avocado. Of course I do. I eat nuts and seeds, but my overall average of calorie intake through the course of a week, a month, a year is always going to be more than 80% of my calories come from carbohydrates and fewer than 10% fat, fewer than 10% protein. Or if you want it as a range, less than. Depends on whether you want a number or a range.
Unfortunately, doctors get zero nutritional education in medical school. They know more about nutrition from their wives and from television commercials than they do in their own studies. We are not designed to eat all this animal flesh, and if they push it on you, they're part of the problem.
In about 2009, I had a serious health episode. I had what's called spontaneous pneumothorax. My lung spontaneously just collapses. So I was hospitalized, and it really affected me because it was a really bad hospital experience. It was almost to the point where I wasn't sure I was gonna get out of there alive. It was really, filled with misdiagnosis and malpractice. It was a really scary episode. So when that happened, and I finally got out of there, it really kind of changed my perspective on life, and I wanted to kind of take my health in my own hands, do everything I could to not return back to a hospital. I kind of realized the thing I could change the most about my health situation would be how to control what I put in my body every day. So I ended up just doing a lot of research about healthier ways of eating. Started as a process. So I cut out red meat, cut out eventually chicken, fish. Last thing I cut out was about dairy, and to the point where after about a year from that episode, I was a full-on vegan, and I think it's the best decision I've ever made. And I've been an athlete my entire life. I played collegiate football at the University of Virginia. Trying to show people that you can build muscle on the vegan diet, and also show people that the food available while you're vegan is amazing. And that's kind of my goal, is to kind of breaking the stereotypes surrounding veganism. The biggest 2 changes I realized once I went vegan was being able to breathe better during the springtime, not suffer from those allergies, and also just recovery time, being able to bounce back from my workouts a lot quicker. Because a lot of stuff you put into your body, especially dairy or meat, animal-based products, is very inflammatory. So you're consuming things that's going to keep you in an inflamed state. So you're already working out different weights. You're inflaming your muscles that way. You're breaking them down. Then you're going to turn around and put, items into your body that's going to induce more inflammation. Well, it makes sense. You're going to be a little bit more sore. So once I cut that out and started eating things that are anti-inflammatory, that fights that inflammation, you realize that you can actually bounce back a lot from a strenuous workout a lot quicker. I went vegan because of the health. That was my initial reasoning for going vegan. It was strictly health related. So I know everybody has different reasons for going vegan, whether it's the health aspect, other people's are straight ethics. People are also aware of the environment. So those are the 3 pillars usually of going vegan. I was health, but after a while, I became more aware of the ethical and the environmental side of it. I wasn't aware of the ethics at all at first, or the environmental aspects, but seeing documentaries, hearing other vegans talk, that actually opened up my eyes a lot more. Now I'm vegan for all 3 reasons, for the health, for the ethics, for the environment. I know that it makes a big impact in all 3 phases. So It's just more than myself at this point. It's just for, for the entire world.
This push for excess protein needs to die before you do. And it's not your genes. What runs in your family is not genetics. What runs in your family is lifestyle and eating habits.
I want to see what happens when you take a retired truck driver who never ate well and didn't want to be there and wanted to prove it didn't work, and then see what happens when you put him on a plant-based diet? Okay. Here we go. Here's David.
At first, I wasn't impressed, because I'm 66 years old and I don't like change, And I drove truck for 43 years, and my diet was not real well. I ate wherever I could find room to park a truck. So they put me on this plant-based diet. First couple weeks, they called me grumpy and had a little bit of an attitude. But I was going to prove to them that it doesn't work. That was my whole objective. So I came to support my wife. It wasn't for me. So after 3 weeks, I had lost 15 pounds. Wow. Not trying. And I'm going, well, I didn't know what the heck was going on. So started checking the numbers, and I'm going, I couldn't believe what had happened. If I was under 168 or 170, I was impressed. All of a sudden, my numbers were down to 104. And I've never been 104, ever. In 13 years, I've never seen a 104. Yeah, my temperature's higher than that. Long story short is, that theory of it wasn't going to work. The numbers don't lie. My last reading for A1C was 6.7.
That's good.
So that was remarkable. The numbers just don't lie. So it does work. Even if you're not trying, it works. It really does.
There is no money in the message that I'm sharing with you. They're only making money when you're sick, when they need to give you prescriptions and they need to do surgery.
Welcome back. Johns Hopkins researchers have analyzed medical death rate data over an 8-year period and found more than 250,000 deaths per year are due to medical error here in this country. The Centers for Disease Control now ranks as the third leading cause of death.
Each and every human on this earth has a choice to make. You can choose to eat like your life depends on it, which it does, but also our earth depends on it.
An all plant-based vegan diet for a year requires just 1/6 of an acre of land. To feed that same person on a vegetarian diet that includes eggs and dairy requires 3 times as much land. To feed an average U.S. citizen's high-consumption diet of meat, dairy, and eggs requires 18 times as much land. This is because you can produce 37,000 pounds of vegetables on 1.5 acres, but only 375 pounds of meat on that same plot of land. I also learned the comparison doesn't end with land use. A vegan diet produces half as much CO2 as an American omnivore, uses 1/11th the amount of fossil fuels, 1/13th the amount of water, and 1/18th of the amount of land. After adding this all up, I realized I had the choice every single day to save over 1,100 gallons of water, 45 pounds of grain, 30 square feet of forested land, the equivalent of 20 pounds of CO2, and one animal's life every single day.
Despite the social media influencers out there and the media that's trying to sell you something, the evidence is overwhelming. Humans are designed to eat plants, and when we eat mostly plants, we thrive. And when we eat more animal products, we have health issues. One of the biggest arguments I got when I first started eating this way is that God put animals on this earth for us to eat. So, being a person who wasn't raised with religion or God, I started reading the Bible. And what did I learn when I read the Bible? Well, right after God created us in Genesis 1:26, he told us exactly what he wants us to eat. And God said, I give you every herb-bearing seed on the face of this whole earth, and every fruit-bearing tree, and these shall be yours for food. Period. This priest finally figured it out after multiple heart attacks, that he couldn't have a relationship with God with dead, decaying animals running through his veins.
I had done great works, and I had never gotten the connection to the Lord. I studied Scripture. I did all the right things as far as a Catholic Christian would be considered. But the Holy Spirit never communicated with me until I was several years without flesh in my body. Now, the reason why churches endorse the consumption of flesh is they know the Holy Spirit will not come into your soul when there's a dead body in it. And because of that, they stay relevant. I tell people, you don't need to come to church. If the church told you, stop eating flesh, and everybody got their connection that I have to God, they would never step foot in the church again. The connection to God, it's the creation, it's the animals. It isn't because you're sitting in a pew. Stop eating meat, live a proper life, and God will find you. You can't find God in a Bible or in a building. He finds you. When you're ready, He finds you.
When I moved to Utah, I decided to see what the Mormons had to say about eating animals.
Jesus ate animals. How would He kill an animal?
Oh, shoot. I don't even know.
If he ate an animal, he might have bought it from the market. Maybe he hunted it. I don't know. I don't know if he ate animal.
There's a famous Mormon painting of Jesus, the Good Shepherd, holding the lamb.
Yeah.
Could you imagine him also killing him?
I couldn't imagine him in my head killing a baby lamb. So.
Yeah, I couldn't either, but I don't know. I think it's a possibility, but I don't know. He's like such a good man.
Part of that revelation is in the word of wisdom. Eat meat sparingly. So
that's verse 12 of that particular chapter of the word of wisdom. But can you read here just what comes after that in verse 13?
And it is pleasing unto me that they should not be used only in times of winter, cold, or famine.
Right. So essentially it's saying in survival situations, right?
Yeah.
If the kingdom of heaven has no slaughter, nowadays, if we're trying to be as much like Jesus as we possibly can, when it comes to eating animal flesh, what would Jesus do?
You know, it would seem like Jesus did not eat meat. And, you know, trying to be like Jesus, we should not also eat meat.
Check out our film.
All this research I did to debate people on religion who wanted to justify eating their animals actually did me a great favor, because it actually brought me closer to God. And I realized that God is very important in my life. So thank you, all those people who argued with me. And I hope that you find the truth too, both the truth of what we eat and the truth of who you were created from. Thank you so much for watching.